Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you again. We are in part two of the history of Israel. Quick recap, and we begin. Talk a little bit about the geography of Israel as it relates in ancient times when basically all we knew are the three continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. We saw the land bridge and we saw how the two main roads of the ancient world go through the land of Israel. We talked about Jerusalem as being one of the main junctions. We talked about Megiddo, Chatzor, Jaffa, the King's Highway, Via Maris, and then we made our move over to the history part. And we started all the way at the beginning in Genesis book 1, verse 1. We talked a little bit about genealogy, talked about Noah and his children and how from Noah's children basically is modern day humanity, and that we are all descendants of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I want to highlight one or two of the names here because this is interesting, I think. This is Canaan right over here. And Canaan is the son of Ham, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then Canaan has a child called Sini in Hebrew. And this, if I'm not mistaken, is where we get the Sinim in Hebrew. Plural of Sini, we add an M. Sinim, which is the Chinese. So already here we might have a clue as to where the Chinese people come from. Maybe they are descendants of Canaan. We're going to make our way down back to Abraham because that's where we basically stopped over there. And Abraham has quite a few children. He has quite a few women that he's going to have these children with. And we're going to start with our friend Hagar. Hagar, the handmaiden of Abraham's first wife, and she gives him Ishmael, and Ishmael gives him 12 children. We're going to continue down and make our way to Abraham with Keturah. We're skipping Sarah for just 1 minute. And with Keturah, this is the second wife of Abraham. She gives him 6 children right over here. These are the 6 children of Keturah and Abraham. And then we have the one child that is Isaac, Yitzchak. The word Yitzchak in Hebrew is from laughter. Sarah, Abraham's wife, laughed when she heard that she's supposed to be pregnant, and therefore they named their child Yitzchak, laughter. And Yitzchak is going to marry Rebecca, Rivka. She's going to give him twins, Esav and Yaakov. They're right over here. And Esav was the older one. And then we have Jacob, Yaakov. Now, there are two different understandings to the name Jacob. The first one is that he grabbed his brother's heel. Now, in Hebrew, the word for heel, the body part, is basically akev. That would be in English A-K-E-V, akev. So because he grabbed his brother's heel, he was named Yaakov, and he also followed his brother coming out of the womb. The word akev can also be translated as to follow. So that's one reason why he's called Yaakov. But then the text gives us a very interesting sentence coming from Esav, his brother. If you remember, Jacob basically cheats his brother twice. Once he gives them the stew. I think most of the Bibles will say the word stew. And then Esav gives him the firstborn rights. But after that, he cheats him again. He cheats his father. He pretends to be Esav. The father is already blind, can't see, so he has to feel his way around. And he puts on some clothing on top of him to make him more hairy, because Esav was a lot more hairy than Jacob was at that time. And then he gets the blessing of the firstborn son. Now, after he gets the blessing, there is a very small part in the Bible that talks about Esav and how he's upset about the fact that Jacob, his brother, cheated him the second time. And he says his name truly suits him because he has cheated me a second time. But in Hebrew, the word that he uses is akavani. Okay, so the root would be A-K-A-V, akav. Now, look at the two different roots. Okay, akev would be A-K-E-V. Akav would be A-K-A-V. Both of them, you can get the name Yaakov. And one is to follow or heal, and the second one is to cheat. So he has cheated them twice already. Interestingly, later on, when he wants to marry Rachel, he's going to be cheated himself. So he's going to marry Leah, and she's going to give him quite a few children, actually. She gives him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boys and one daughter. We have the children of Jacob, but before that, of course, Jacob is going to change his name into Israel. So these are already the children of Israel. He's going to have Leah's handmaid give him 2 more children. These are Gad and Asher. He's going to have Rachel give him 2 sons, Yosef, Joseph, and Bin Oni, Binyamin, which is Benjamin in English. And then Bilhah, who's Rachel's handmaid, is going to give him 2 more children, which are Dan and Naphtali. So altogether, we have 12 boys, and we also have the daughter Dinah over here. These are going to be the children of Israel. Now, as with all children, there is quite a bit of sibling rivalry. And Israel, Jacob, he's playing favorites. The other 11 brothers are very upset about all of this, and they are obviously taking it out on Joseph. And then Jacob, Israel, does the unthinkable. He is going to give his favorite son, Joseph, the best looking pajamas anyone could ever hope for. And these pajamas are going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. And the other 11 brothers are so upset over this, they want to get rid of Joseph once and for all. They throw him into a pit. They bloodstain the pajamas. They go to their father and show him the bloodstained pajamas and tell him that a wild boar or an animal killed his favorite son. In reality, they actually sell Joseph to the Midianites, who in turn bring him over to Egypt. And in Egypt, Joseph is going to be imprisoned. Now, he already before coming to Egypt was known for his ability to decipher dreams. And when the Pharaoh has a dream that no one else can interpret, it's Joseph's time to shine. Joseph listens to this dream, and he hears how the Pharaoh talks about 7 skinny cows that swallow whole 7 fat cows next to the Nile River. What does this mean? Joseph comes along, listens, and he understands that there are going to be 7 years of lots of great agriculture. Lots of fields are going to grow all the crops that you can think of. Those are the 7 fat cows. And the 7 skinny cows, the ones that are going to swallow the 7 fat cows, that means that after the 7 years of good agriculture, we're going to have 7 years of a drought, a horrible drought. And luckily, the Pharaoh agrees that this is a good interpretation, and they start planning ahead. And during the 7 years of good agriculture, they build warehouses, and they're going to stock up everything they need for the 7 bad years. And when the drought hits, the Egyptians are okay. Now, unfortunately, not everybody in the area knows about this. They don't know that there are going to be 7 years of drought. And some of the people who are not aware of this are the brothers of Joseph. They've been living in Canaan, still at that time. And now the drought hits and they are lost. They don't know what to do. They hear that there might be some food in Egypt. So they pack up their stuff and they start walking to Egypt. Joseph sees them. Now, at this point, Joseph is not Pharaoh, but basically everything he says goes. And that's to mean that he is the #1 advisor, let's put it that way, of the Pharaoh in a very high position, the highest position that he could be. And he sees his brothers and he listens to what they have to say and he remembers them, of course. They don't even recognize Joseph at this point. And Joseph forgives his brothers and he sends them back to Canaan, back to the land to bring their entire family and their parents. And there's a huge reunion. And Joseph is in a very good position, as we said, in Egypt. And as family of Joseph, as family of the #1 advisor to the Pharaoh, all of his family are treated likewise. And this is the time where the Israelites are going to start filling the land. This is the time that they're going to start becoming tribes. They're getting married, they're having children, their children are getting married and having children, and their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and they are filling the land of Egypt at this point. We're talking about almost 200 years or so of procreation within Egypt when everybody is still treated in a very good way. But then a Pharaoh rises that doesn't remember who Joseph was. And he sees this big nation who are not a part of the Egyptian people themselves, and he's afraid that they're going to rebel against him. The best thing to do in this case is enslave these people. And at this point, the Israelites become slaves in Egypt. And we're talking about another 200, maybe 250 years of slavery in Egypt. Now, when you are already 400 years in a pagan area, you adopt a lot of the pagan worshiping ideals and theories. And the Israelites, because they're slaves in Egypt, they are praying to any god that they can think of to save them from their misery. And the Israelite God hears them, remembers his promises to the forefathers, and he sends a messenger in the form of Moses. Moses is going to come to the Pharaoh. Now, unfortunately, and this is more of like a legend, it's not exactly in the text, but according to Jewish tradition, when Moses was a baby, the Pharaoh presented him with two options: hot coals or gold, to see what the baby is going to grab. And even though Moses' hand was going for the gold, God moved his hand over to the coal and he put that coal in his mouth. And because of that, he became a stutterer. So when Moses comes in front of the Pharaoh and he stutters, we need a mouthpiece for him. So Moses is going to come with Aaron, his brother, and together they're going to say, "Let my people go." And the Pharaoh looks at them and basically says, "Why should I?" And they're going to do all sorts of what we can call today parlor tricks. This is what Moses and Aaron can do, but apparently the advisors of the Pharaoh, his magicians, can also do all of these things. So when the magicians of the Pharaoh change their staffs into, I think it was alligators or snakes, Moses does the same, but Moses' staff actually eats the snakes or the alligators that the Egyptian magicians were able to conjure up. But then it's time for God to step in, and God is going to strike the Egyptians 10 times. Each one of these strikes goes against one of the main gods of the Egyptians. While the Egyptians are pagans, and for those who are kind of lost as to what a pagan is someone who believes in all the gods. And if you tell them that there is a new god, he just adds it to the list. No problem. It's great being a pagan. The more gods, the merrier. So the pagans believe in many, many gods, but even in Egypt, there were the elite gods, the higher ranking gods. And when God, for example, blocks out the sun, this is the ninth strike. What he's saying to the Egyptians is there is no such thing as a god of the sun. They call him Ra, R-A. There's no such thing as a god of the sun. I control all the elements of the world. I control the sun. I can block the sun. It's not the god Ra that does these things. And then, of course, the 10th one, the 10th strike, is the killing of the firstborn children of the Egyptians. Now, in order for the Israelites not to suffer the same fate as the Egyptian children, God tells Moses to tell the Israelites to put the blood of a lamb on their door fronts. And that way, when the angels are going to come and kill the Egyptian children, they will see the blood on the door fronts of the Israelite people, and they will pass over those door fronts. And for that reason, the Jewish people all around the world, even today, celebrate a holiday which is called Passover, because God literally passed over the doors of the Israelites at that time. This 10th strike is the final blow. The Pharaoh allows the Israelites to leave, and Moses is going to lead them through the desert towards the Reed Sea. God is going to split the Reed Sea. The people of Israel are going to walk through it. At this point, the Pharaoh sends his army to go and capture the Israelites. But when the Egyptian army tries to cross the Reed Sea, the water of the Reed Sea drowned them. Now the Israelites are going to be 40 years in the desert. They are not stationary. They're walking from station to station or from camp to camp, building sukkot, tabernacles. And they are going to walk from the south side of Israel, as you can see on the map. They're going to cross over to where modern day Jordan is. And they're going to be on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Moses unfortunately defies God. God told him to speak to a rock, and Moses instead is going to hit the rock. It still brought water, but basically what Moses did was to take away from God's glory. And the idea is that if you speak to a rock and the water comes out, that's an actual miracle. Whereas when you're a shepherd in the desert for a long time, you might know that there is water hiding behind one of the rocks, and all you have to do is break that area and you'll get to the water. So by defying God's words, Moses is taking away from God's glory, and his punishment is not being able to walk into the promised land. Instead of Moses, we have a new leader. His name is Joshua. And Joshua is going to cross the Jordan on his own, first of all, where he meets the angel of the Lord. The Israelites are situated somewhere around this area. Joshua, as I mentioned, is going to cross the Jordan River. This is the Jordan River flowing from the Sea of Galilee towards the area of the Dead Sea. And somewhere around here is the city of Jericho. And on the plains of Jericho, in the surrounding area, somewhere over here, Joshua is going to meet God's angel who's going to tell him to take his shoes off because he has just stepped on holy ground. This is one of only 2 places in the entire Bible where God says specifically to take your shoes off because you are on holy ground. Joshua returns to camp, and he's going to take the Israelites and cross the Jordan River, and the Jordan River waters will split, and the Israelites will cross, and then they're going to conquer the city of Jericho. That was the first city that they're going to conquer. Now, the book of Judges, the next book in the story, is going to basically give us the tactics that were used by the Israelites. And what do I mean by that? The Israelites are going to have to conquer their way into the land. All of this area that I'm marking right now was biblical Israel, including the eastern side of the Jordan River over here and the western side of the Jordan River over here. And there's no void. Somebody is living in this area. 400 years around Egypt, another 40 years or so in the desert. Somebody lives in the land over here. And we already mentioned how important the land of Israel is. And therefore, we have the ites living here. We have the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Jebusites. There's always an exception to the rule. So we also have the Philistines. And therefore, the Israelite tribes are going to have to fight their way into the land. And as you can see, for example, Judah conquers the area in the middle, and then Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh are going to be on the eastern side. Manasseh is actually on the eastern side and the western side of the Jordan River. And Dan, you can see it written twice, Dan over here and Dan in the north, because Dan was one of the tribes that tried to conquer its way here in the middle of Israel, but was unable. The Philistines proved too strong an adversary, and therefore the tribe of Dan had to move to the north. All of the stories basically have the same cycle. They did evil in God's eyes. They were punished. A judge was sent to deliver them. The judge rallies the Israeli tribe around him, and they go and fight their way. And then there was peace and quiet for the next 30 or 40 years. So this period of the book of Judges is over 400 years. And eventually, they find a place to settle down. And now that the Israelite tribe have settled down, this is where we're going to stop for today. And we'll pick this up in just about 2 weeks. An invitation will be sent to everybody who's on my email list. I hope you enjoyed the seminar. If you want to go back, it'll be online probably on Thursday. And make sure to like the video, subscribe, tell your friends and family. Have a wonderful evening. See you in about 2 weeks. Good night, everybody.